Okay, hello again. This is now the tarot lesson number 30. 30. Today, it's mainly going to be about the Justice card because I have an idea that I wanted to tell you. Before that, I want to do live streaming, and I think I'm going to use StreamYard. So it's through YouTube, but the thing I've watched various live streams from people, and when the person's speaking, that's okay, but then they've got to stop and read the comments, and it's kind of boring. So the advantage of StreamYard is that I can have guests. So I'm wondering about if any of you would like to appear, because what I can do is I can have, let's say, 3 or 4 different people, and I can have you on screen or in the background, and then when you want to talk, I can bring you to the front and you can talk and you can have a comment or ask a question, and then we can switch back and forth. So it's not so much me reading comments, because there can be too many to keep track of at any particular time. But I think with StreamYard, it could work quite well. Now I need to figure out if anybody actually wants to appear, but we'll get to that. So that's that. So part 1 of this is some years ago. I'll mention this anyway. Some years ago, I used to teach a class at a college about how to write reports. And I mentioned this years and years ago, about how at the end, when you're writing a report or when you're doing a reading for yourself or for somebody else, that you think to yourself, when you reach the end of a sentence, you think to yourself, so what? And you're hard on yourself. So if you're writing something and at the end of the sentence you say, so what? And the answer is, so nothing. Either get rid of the sentence or turn the sentence into something that does mean something. And I think it's the same kind of thing with readings, where if you've got a card in front of you, say something meaningful rather than say, okay, I don't know what to say, so I'm just going to ramble for a couple of minutes and hopefully something will come up. But rather than turn a card and get the fool and say, well, and then start going on about something you read in a book about the fool, and maybe it means nothing to the questioner or has nothing to do with the question that they asked. So I think if we can be harsh with ourselves and demanding of ourselves in what we say to people about the tarot, everybody benefits. So that's so what. I'll come back to that in a bit. So the Justice card, there you go. There's a Justice card. So there are different kinds of questions. So if we've got a question, if you look here, we've got the scales in one hand and the sword in the right. Okay, so the idea is you get things in balance or in harmony, then you take action, because the sword represents action and decisiveness and cutting out what no longer belongs, or whatever it happens to be. But instead of just randomly cutting away, it's a good idea to think things through, or to look at both sides, and this can be what the scales represent. So the question about a law or their law, or about a relationship, maybe what you do maybe the advice to the card, so to speak, is when the Justice card comes up, you don't just assume that you're right, but you weigh both sides of the argument. So if it's an argument between you and somebody else, you think clearly about your position, but you also give the benefit of the doubt to the other person's position and think through what they want or what they're going for or how they're behaving. And in the light of having weighed, because it's a scale, and in the light of having weighed both sides of the argument or both sides of the situation, then you make a decision, or then you take action. With that in mind, I mentioned so what a minute or two ago. instead of saying to yourself, so what, maybe what you do is you say to yourself, what if? So we've got scales. And the question might be, what if we ignore this person? What if we do what the other person wants? What if we follow my idea? And so you're asking what if and applying that idea to different points of view. There is an exercise people sometimes do, and it's what can go wrong. What's the worst thing that can happen? So maybe you've got a situation where you want to buy something and your partner wants to buy something else. So you look at, and you can't make up your mind about whether you buy a big screen TV or whether you put money away to go on a vacation, right? That's an example. So you look at what's the worst that could happen if we buy the TV. What's the worst that can happen? And if we put money away for the vacation, what's the worst that can happen? And you discover, by asking what's the worst that can happen, you discover the worst that can happen. And it's often enough, the worst that can happen is nothing, is not that important or not that bad. So you know that by not following a particular course of action, nothing terrible is going to happen anyway. So it really doesn't matter whether you follow it or not. So what I wanted, the point I wanted to get to was this coming up. We've got here a pair of scales. I have to do it this way, right? We've got, and there's one scale and there's the other scale, right? So a lot of times with people, they say things that I'd like to learn to paint, but, and then they give you all sorts of reasons why they can't. I'm too old, I don't have any ability, other people have tried and it didn't work, I can't afford the paint, I can't afford the class, I can't afford the time, I've got too much work to do. You know what, that kind of, we people tend to do that. So they say what they want, right? And so what they want is on one side of the scale, and let's say it weighs 1 pound, right? But then they go to the other side of the scale, or the other side, and start explaining about, we can't do it because of this and this and this and this and this and this and this. And you end up with 40 pounds of why not. So this doesn't work. And we can wonder why things don't go well when we spend most of our time explaining to ourselves or to other people, why not? And that's why at the end of the last lesson, I picked a card and got the 7 of Cups and said, why don't you think about some big project that would be exciting and interesting for you? And so today, with the Justice card, I'm going to suggest that you forget about this side of the scale. Sometimes, yes, you have to consider both sides. But when it comes to you and your life and how you're going to live it, focus on what you want. Just focus on one side of the scale and put weight on it. And gradually you'll find that instead of your scale being like this, with one down here and one up here, that's what you want, and that's the weight of everything that you don't want. Gradually, it goes like that, where I'm getting mixed up here. This becomes the heavier scale. So what you do is forget about what you don't want. Just focus on what you do want and imagine about. That's why I mentioned at the end of with this 7 of Cups, what are your big dreams? What do you want? What would satisfy you? Even if other people don't get it, that's their problem, not yours, because you want it. It would give you satisfaction. It would be exciting. It would make you happier. It would turn you into a happy, motivated individual who infects the people around them with happiness and excitement and interest in living and making the most of what we've got. And I think that happens. We end up with the scale tilted in favor of good stuff. But we have to keep putting good stuff onto the good side of the scale. And that's why at the end of last time I said next we'd look at the Seven of Cups. So there's a serious suggestion for you. What do you want? Think about what you actually want, not what you think you ought to want. That's other people. What do you personally want? And if what you want is not going to damage other people or cause them major problems or whatever, if what you want would give you a sense of satisfaction or enjoyment or excitement or be interesting and get you motivated when you get up in the morning, that's what we should be doing with our lives instead of being miserable. In Thelma and Louise, the movie, Louise said to Thelma one time, that's Susan Sarandon's character, she said, "You get what you settle for." I think that's true. So on the other hand, we can get what we settle for, or we can go out and make things happen. We can follow our dreams, because this Seven of Cups is a bit like the positive side of it is follow your dreams. And maybe when it's upside down, you're not following your dreams. You're not giving yourself a chance. Okay, that was kind of it. So today is Friday, so Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I'll be back on Monday. And we're going to look at, Evelyn left a comment about, she did a medical question and wasn't sure, it was a yes or no one, and she wasn't sure about what to do with it. So I have a suggestion on how to deal with difficult or medical questions that give you answers, but also don't leave you open to being sued for malpractice because you're not actually a doctor. Thank you for watching. I'm off, and I'll see you in a few days. Okay? Bye-bye.